Tonight, the president's first press conference of the year, hit with questions over the administration's approach to the pandemic, soaring inflation, and the Biden agenda, as the Democrats' push for an election law overhaul tumbles in the Senate, and as the crisis in Ukraine intensifies.
We've made very clear to Moscow that if it chooses to renew aggression against Ukraine, it will be met and it will face very severe consequences.
Tensions rising between Russia and the United States, and rise of the machines?
We have these machines emerging, and people are beginning to worship those machines.
Humanity's increasing dependence on technology. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Facing the cameras and the press, President Biden addressing the concerns of Americans. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Well, on the eve of the one-year anniversary of his swearing in, President Biden holding court just shy of 2 hours on everything from the pandemic to inflation to foreign affairs at his first press conference of this year, the 10th of his presidency. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us now with more. Abigail, right off the top, President Biden was asked if he overpromised on his agenda. Abigail, how did he answer?
Well, John, he responded by saying, if anything, he thinks he has overperformed in his first year. But he acknowledged that he did not anticipate Republicans would be as determined as they have been to block his agenda. And he also conceded that in order to get the support needed from within his own party to pass his signature Build Back Better agenda, he will likely have to break that bill up. But he said he is still pushing for everything he's promised to pass for the American people.
I'm not asking for castles in the sky. I'm asking for practical things the American people have been asking for a long time. A long time. And I think we can get it done.
And when President Biden was asked about the pandemic, he said that we are not going back to lockdowns and school closures. And he added, while the media is highlighting schools who are fighting Omicron surges that are closing around the country, he claims 95% of schools in America are open. And he says we now have the tools needed to fight the pandemic while encouraging Americans to continue to get vaccinated and boosted.
Some people may call what's happening now the new normal. I call it a job not yet finished. It will get better. We're moving toward a time when COVID-19 won't disrupt our daily lives, where COVID-19 won't be a crisis, but something to protect against and a threat. Look, we're not there yet, but we will get there.
Biden also fielded quite a few questions on inflation, and he acknowledged that this is going to be a very hard problem to fix, but he claims the solution to fixing it lies in passing his Build Back Better agenda.
There's a lot we have to do. It's not going to be easy, but I think we can get it done, but it's going to be painful for a lot of people in the meantime. That's why the single best way to take the burden off middle class and working class folks is to pass the Build Back Better piece that are things that they're paying a lot of money for now.
And John, one final headline coming out of today's conference I'll highlight is while Biden did not confirm he's going to run again in 2024, he did say that if he does, Vice President Kamala Harris would be on the ticket with him. John?
All right, Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson. Thank you, Abby. Well, the Democratic push for an election overhaul appears headed for a failed vote, thanks in part to West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. The holdout, seen as a linchpin ahead of the vote, said he will support the Democrats' voting rights bill, but will vote no to changing the Senate rules on the filibuster to ram it through. He made his intentions known on the Senate floor ahead of tonight's expected vote.
But I believe with every fiber in my body that every eligible citizen of voting age should have the right to vote and be protected by law. But that's not what we're debating right now. I think we all know that. Right now we're debating a fundamental change in the Senate rules that will forever alter the way this body functions.
And here with us now, CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, we all just listened to the president. He answered why he did not call Republicans like Utah's Senator Mitt Romney to get some buy-in from voting for his voting rights bill. Mr. Biden said he didn't call any Republicans, not just Mr. Romney. Was that a fatal mistake, or is there just no room for compromise on this issue or others?
So, John, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's what I thought, too. I said to myself, wait a minute, he's blaming Republicans. He's saying that there's disunity among Republicans and Democrats. And then he goes, yeah, I didn't really call any Republicans. Well, what? Huh? That's all I have to say. Back to you, John, after huh. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, how do you say, there's disunity, and then you're saying, but I contributed to it by not calling any Republicans? I mean, I thought the press conference was all over the place. I've got a lot to say, but John, you've got, I'm sure, plenty of other questions.
David, I want to get to something that he alluded to. He talked about Governor Sununu and the reason why he decided not to run for the U.S. Senate. He talked about wanting to do more than be a roadblock, which is what Republicans appear to be doing. So back to that question, if there's compromise not just on issues like reforming elections, but on other things, then the point that President Biden is making is that Republicans aren't willing to make those compromises. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, that might be part of what's going on here. But look, I just think overall there was just problems up and down of what Biden was saying. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, to Abby, what Abby was talking about earlier, I mean, think about what Joe Biden said in this press conference. He used the word overperformed, as in his performance. He overperformed in the first year. Really? Has anybody been to the grocery store recently? And by the way, speaking of the grocery store, I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but look, he said the word, or he cited the figure, 89% of grocery store shelves are filled. Well, look, that is such a Washington, D.C. answer. 89% of grocery store shelves are filled. Really? Can I get some cream cheese? Because the last time I checked, I couldn't find any. Look, it was a tone-deaf press conference, John. It was an absolute. He even said, quote, I don't believe the polls. That's what he said. I don't believe the polls. You don't believe the polls? Well, let's check with me back in November of 2022. We'll see how he's doing then.
David, someone needs to get you cream cheese, because I watched yesterday and you said the same thing to Jen about not having cream cheese.
It's driving me crazy, John. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Someone get that man some cream cheese. Moving on, the president insisted the White House has made the right decisions in the administration's response to the pandemic. David, how do you think that assessment jives with most Americans, given where we are today with the pandemic?
Well, I think we're split on the pandemic in this country, but I think he missed a vital opportunity to appeal to independents in the press conference. Look, Joe Biden's number with independents started at 60% approval among independents a year ago when he first took office. It's now at 33% and falling quickly. 33% among independents compared to 60%. Why? Because independents have a lot of issues. Yes, the economy and this and that, but vaccine mandates, the school boards, all that type of stuff, but especially on the vaccine mandates, he didn't address the COVID vaccine mandates. A reporter didn't ask about it, and he didn't address it. And I'm telling you, John, politically, look, I'm not in the Biden administration the last time I checked, but if you're a political consultant inside the Biden administration, how do you not say to him, look, I've got to address the vaccine mandates because this is hurting us with independence? He didn't do it at all in the press conference today. I thought it was an opportunity missed, John.
I think the one thing that he did probably say that kind of caught the attention of many people was the fact that he said schools should not close. I think that is something that we have not heard, at least from the president prior to this. So, David Brody, we are out of time. Thank you so much for your time.
You bet.
Well, the president answered questions at his press conference about the crisis in Ukraine, where Secretary of State Antony Blinken landed today to try to prevent a Russian invasion. Both sides, though, are digging in their heels, raising concerns of a new war in Europe. CBN News reporter Mark Martin has the story.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. hopes diplomacy can still win out, but he maintains that if Russia chooses to renew aggressive action against Ukraine, it will encounter very serious consequences.
And as we've noted, this will have financial components, economic components, export control components, etc.
Blinken met with his Ukrainian counterpart Wednesday, hoping to reassure Ukraine that the U.S. will back the country in the face of Russian aggression.
As we meet today, Russia has ratcheted up its threats and amassed nearly 100,000 forces on Ukraine's border, which it could double on relatively short order.
Russia has pushed aside calls to withdraw its troops by claiming it has a right to place its forces wherever it wants in its own territory. During a joint news conference with Blinken, the Ukrainian foreign minister said the conflict has only one solution, and it's a diplomatic solution. Meanwhile, here at home, GOP senators weighed in on the crisis.
We want the diplomatic activity to continue, and as a body, we support a diplomatic response and a final outcome without bloodshed.
It is going to be a disaster for Russia if they further invade Ukraine, and that our allies and partners are ready to impose severe cost and significant harm on Russia and the Russian economy.
The Biden administration has said it was giving an additional $200 million in defensive military aid to Ukraine. Blinken says more is on the way, and that total will increase if Russia invades. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Thank you, Mark. Coming up, Virginia's new governor off to a running start, moving in a different direction than years past. What that means for Virginia and beyond. Well, welcome back. It's full steam ahead in the first full week on the job for Virginia's 74th governor. Governor Glenn Youngkin helped to usher a red wave across the Old Dominion for the first time in nearly a decade. Even as the first-time politician prepared to take the Commonwealth on a new track, the 55-year-old former executive called on Virginians on both sides of the political spectrum to put aside their differences.
The spirit of Virginia is not a spirit that is rested in government telling us what is best for us, but rather reflecting the will of the people. Defending and protecting. We must bind the wounds of division, restore trust, find common cause for the common good, and strengthen the spirit of Virginia.
Governor Youngkin fired off nearly a dozen executive orders immediately after taking office Saturday, including a ban on critical race theory in public education, ending mask mandates in schools, revoking a vaccine mandate for state workers, terminating the Virginia Parole Board, and establishing a commission to combat anti-Semitism. Here now, Todd Gilbert, Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates. Todd, welcome to Faith Nation, and congratulations on your newly elected role. Let's start with Governor Youngkin. He focused his campaign on kitchen table issues. Getting rid of that grocery tax could be a big help with soaring inflation across the country. How much buy-in, though, do you have from Democrats in the House of Delegates for policies Youngkin promised on the campaign trail?
Well, they were noticeably quiet on a number of issues during his speech the other night, his introduction to the House and the Senate. They could not bring themselves to applaud for things like getting rid of taxes on groceries, things like the Constitution, fallen officers even. They couldn't bring themselves to applaud for those things. So the buy-in is going to be difficult. This is an issue that outgoing Governor Northam put in his budget, elimination of the grocery tax. So whether we can cross the aisle to work on this thing that looks like it's going to be very helpful to every single family in Virginia, that all remains to be seen.
You hinted at this. A lot of voters in November were mobilized around issues like education. How important is the school issue in Virginia, and what kind of legislation are you and the House of Delegates and lawmakers with you exploring?
It's so important, and I think we've reached a moment that we never could have foreseen, where Republicans all of a sudden found themselves with the advantage on an issue like public education. So we are looking to make good on our promises and make good on the higher profile that this has. We never could have envisioned an opportunity to message on an issue like school choice that unfortunately this pandemic has provided, because all of a sudden, you know, folks who love their local school, their local school system, found themselves in a position where they weren't able to send their children there against their will. And so all of a sudden eyes have been opened and hearts are opened to new opportunities, and we look forward to those opportunities, to engaging in more opportunities for choice, for innovation in education.
A big day this past Saturday for Virginians, but in Richmond. I saw you there at the swearing in. You know, the governor's inaugural speech called on Virginians from both parties to put differences aside. How do you expect the governor and his administration, and for your part, lawmakers, to unite Virginians in such a divisive political climate?
You know, Governor Youngkin has spent untold hours prior to taking office trying to start and then build relationships, not only with Republican lawmakers, but across the aisle. I really believe him when he says he wants to foster ideas that transcend politics and partisanship, and he wants to reach across the aisle. He had a bold new vision that he laid out for Virginia and Virginians, and it's going to involve working across the aisle to do that.
But as Virginia's newly installed House Speaker, what are going to be your top priorities in the Commonwealth's General Assembly, given that you are trying to run things in divided government?
Well, it may sound like a broken record, but you know, we ran on those things too, not just Governor Youngkin. We ran on giving our kids better opportunities in school. We ran on lowering the cost of living, the cost of energy, the cost of goods. We ran on making our communities safer in the wake of our Democratic colleagues having really an entire session or two trying to make criminals out to be the victims and the police out to be the bad guys. We aim to turn that ship around and try to be more responsive to what people want, to what they need, and to have a Virginia that people can live, work, and raise a family more effectively and efficiently and happily, ultimately, and that's what we intend to do.
Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates, Todd Gilbert, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, John.
When we come back, rise of the machines. A look at how new and emerging technologies may be affecting people's relationship with God. It is no secret in the last several years, the world has witnessed some of the most rapid developments in technology. As people spend more time every day on their smartphones, computers, or with Siri or Alexa, where does that put serving God? CBN's Gary Lane looks at the potential spiritual dangers for people of faith who grow increasingly dependent on technology.
We live in a rapidly advancing world, dominated by intelligent computers and high-tech machines. Author Wallace Henley says this could take American society deeper into dangerous territory, a less human world, which replaces the creator with the created.
We have these machines emerging, and people are beginning to worship those machines. There's actually an AI church now. There's another technology specialist who said if this thing can go 1 billion times faster than the human brain, this machine, then the only thing that we can call it is God.
Henley is a Christian Post exclusive columnist and author of the book, Who Will Rule the Coming Gods? Appearing recently on CBN's The Global Lane, Henley suggests an excessive dependency on technology may draw people away from acknowledging and embracing God's supremacy.
Just about the time we're forgetting God, forgetting his transcendent majesty and our accountability to it, we're developing these machines that are taking his place.
A world where machines create a more leisurely and convenient society, but also one lacking accountability and dependency on God. Remember Rosie the robot from the 1960s cartoon The Jetsons?
I may be homely, Buster, but I'm S-M-A-R-T smart.
It's no longer science fiction. Today, less sophisticated robots are being used to vacuum floors, build automobiles, and deliver fast food.
Hello, here's your delivery.
And meet Amazon's Astro, a robot that monitors your home and follows you from room to room. Think of Alexa on wheels.
A robot?
Yes.
What are we going to do with a robot?
I kind of like having information at my fingertips in the palm of my hand, and I look forward to getting a robot someday that will mow my lawn, maybe even fix the plumbing. Anything wrong with that? When should I become morally and spiritually concerned?
There's nothing wrong with that, as long as we understand the utility of it. I'm thankful every time I go to a doctor and they have to probe me, and instead of opening my body and doing exploratory surgery, they can stick something inside of me and find out what's wrong. I like that. That's great. That's much better. But what's dangerous is when we forget that God is enthroned, that we were made for transcendence. The human being is wired for that.
Gospel music executive Marquise Boone shares that concern. He created JC, a computer-generated AI gospel music artist.
If you ever go to pieces,
fall between the thunder clouds. I will put you back together. I won't let you down.
Boone suggests non-human techno singers like JC can be used to point music fans back to God.
We enjoy personalities, we enjoy their music, but we start to really idolize them. We start to really believe that these people are almost like gods, and that's not the goal of God, is to have us to redirect them only back to Him for worship, not to make it about us.
Henley believes America's founding fathers understood the importance of divine accountability.
They said we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And whenever we don't understand that, then the state becomes dominant and the utility becomes the most important thing.
And he says when that happens, society changes for the worse. The slave era is just one example when human beings were treated as property. Henley believes the mindset is repeating itself in America today. People are being used without fellowship, without the bond that God wants us to have in relationships. He urges us to be on guard and aware of the standing that we give to God and technology in our life.
When we come to giving ourselves so completely, without knowing it, to the machines, we're in dangerous territory. St. Augustine said, the human heart was made by God and for God, and only God can fill it.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Coming up, talk about an entrance, high-speed delivery. How one special newborn's birth literally stopped traffic. We explain next. Finally tonight, a Michigan couple was just 5 minutes away from the hospital, but that wasn't enough time for their expectant baby. The dad called 911, and with the assistance of a state trooper who shut down a lane of traffic and took the wheel, the husband joined his wife on the passenger side, delivering baby Cameron right there in the seat of their car.
It was a good experience, I think, for me, like just holding him in my hands as he comes out. I wasn't thrown off by it. It was an exciting moment.
Wow, calm, cool, and collected. The father noted the real hero of the story is mom, Brittany, who's getting some well-deserved rest. Both baby Cameron and his mother are recovering in the hospital. Congratulations to the family and some quick thinking there. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation. Thanks for watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.